Hello,
Oh.
everybody. You are live, and Jeremy is already yelling out at the camera. Today, I'm super excited because I have Jeremy with me, and we're going to have an awesome discussion about no code, about his entrepreneurship journey. Your V.One is the company that he runs. It is a no-code tool to build native mobile apps. They actually just raised and got into and just came out of a program with Jason Calacanis. He has multiple experiences in startups, both as a founder and as a member, running operations, and also being the CEO. And so, you know, he's also just like a great guy, maybe one of the guys who has such a big energy that it fills a room. Jeremy, thanks for joining us. I'm so stoked to have you here.
You have no idea how excited I am to be here. Like, it's watching your LinkedIn live game and watching all this content you're putting out makes me jealous. I know doing something makes me jealous. I always look at that feeling. I always really dive in. So I'm excited to be here, to be a part of the jealousy that you have created in me.
It's great. And I think we talked about this off camera, and it was like, you know, I think everyone has those moments where they go onto social media and they just have like envy. And the reality is just like, is that most of the time that's just like negative self-talk and negative energy towards yourself. But it's funny because you say that, and I've also been seeing your game over the past couple of 6 months since we actually met for the first time. And I've been like, man, he's doing amazing. So I think it's really like, you know, like it always looks better on the other side, right? So
the grass is always greener. And exactly. I just have to say, I'm also podcast host of Not Boring Business, right? Where we bring on no code CEOs, and you should be one of them to come on as well. So like, maybe you can teach me how to do LinkedIn Live, but like, you probably have a better following. And
yeah, definitely.
That introduction makes me sound so cool, and I go, who is he talking about? Like, honestly, it can't be me.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience, and I think it's like sometimes when you're a founder and you're constantly struggling with like self-doubt and with like trying to figure stuff out, like you know, other people believe in you more than you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And honestly, like looking back, you look at everything you've done, and for you, it's not as impressive, but a lot of people are starting out. And so I think that like, you know, it's important to share your stories and to also like, not undervalue yourself, my friend.
I agree.
So let's jump straight into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about your V.One? How did this come to happen? And where are you at now? You know, I know you raised a bit of funds, and you're growing. Let's talk about that.
So I'm a non-technical founder myself. So like I call it being non-technical. And then there's a bunch of people just over the last year or so that go, what does non-technical mean? I'm a technical designer. like Joe Jesus. You know, so like so no coding, and you are the reason why I now have the term no coder, right? Because it's like it says what it is, the person, right? So it says I'm a no coder. No one's gonna fucking ask you what a what's a no coder. Well, it's clear that it's like I know no code, right? So I know coder, right? So like that's what I've kind of got to. So like for me, I've now branded this as like everyone who can't code, essentially. So as a non-technical person who cannot code, I was stuck and perplexed on how to build an app and build a website and all these things 5 years ago. And I tried literally every single avenue there was. Hiring a freelancer, which gets risky and expensive. I don't know how many fucking times I've argued with Upwork, right? Like over refunds of people not delivering. Finding co-founders and literally being abandoned 14 different times. You don't want to raise a bunch of money to build a quality product. I didn't have any money. So like I just started teaching myself no coding or no code tools. Like my first company in 2016 I built was Air5. And it started with like just a WordPress website and an old school builder. Do you remember or know AppPresser?
AppPresser? No, actually.
Dude, like it turns like a WordPress website into like a kind of an app. So like I used this and I pivoted that company all in no code 14 different times, and I monetized 5 figures at each stage. So I figured I love what I was doing with Typeform, WordPress, Zapier, and all these things were kind of newer back in like 15, 16.
Yeah.
And then this whole wave comes after this one person asked me, I would like to buy one of your old pivots, right? So like, I want this business card contact piece. So I sold it to him and I go, I wonder if there's a market for this. So I sold it again and I sold it again and I sold it again to where I had my second 6-figure like no code company where I would just package the files I already had, automate the workflow with Zapier, send them the document, connect them with a freelancer to do any customizations that they wanted. And then I go, this was the end of 2018 where I was like, I need to further productize this.
Mm-hmm.
So as I was further thinking about ways to productize this, it came up with the name that it was like, this is your V.One, right? So like, and then some people go, what is a V.One? And you don't know what it's version 1. So it's your first version that you should launch with. And in 2019, in mid 2019, we started the public beta for what the platform would be. And that was my third 6-figure no code company as a no code solo founder.
Mm-hmm.
And then built all with no code. And then come to 2019, we started to grow our revenue. And we got looked at by Jason Calacanis and the Launch Accelerator just recently, which we just graduated. He's a brilliant genius, and I love his advice and everything. Maybe he'll probably watch this. I don't know. So like, you gotta pat him on the back all the time. So like, so for me, we got out of the accelerator. We were one of the first in the cohort to like close money, right? So like, my goal was to raise really fast, because I fucking hate the idea of raising money. Period.
Yeah.
Like
you need to get back to operations as quickly as possible, because if not, that starts lagging and the whole ship doesn't work. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, which So like, we just closed some funding. We haven't made anything like really public yet, and we probably won't, not for any like reason in particular, but just like because I would rather not focus on the press and focus on like truly building a business that customers love, right?
Yeah.
So we're really going after the people who have no idea how to build an app, right? Like just really don't even know how to navigate a CMS. So like we claim, and you can, if you want to, like you can build an app in 5 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally an app, drag and drop things, design in Canva because we have a Canva integration, and then push it live because we've automated that process as well to the App Store. You can download your source code, kind of following my journey, as I was telling you earlier or off camera. It's essentially everything I wanted to build as a no-coder. And now I get the pleasure of being on WeAreNoCode LinkedIn Live. So something's working.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, it's been great to see your progress as well since we last spoke. I know that you just had a really big redesign internally. I salute you for that. I think it's really beautiful. So let's go into like this ecosystem right now. And one thing that I love that we talked about also off camera, we basically had an entire interview off camera before starting to shoot. But but basically is this idea that you are also sort of working with some of these other companies who people already know how to use, companies like Airtable, companies like Canva, and you're basically working with them, or you're saying instead of building your own database, we will allow you to absolutely just use Airtable as the database for your app. How did that come to be, and why is that your position?
I wanted to be I was sick and tired of all these other builders having learning curves. So like every square inch of these fucking things was something I had to learn, and I had to know. I had to at least at a minimum hover over, see the tooltip of what this icon meant to them, right? So like, and trust me, the more complicated they get, right, the more they ostracize the early users. So I was like, what can we do to make sure that at least facets or big chunks of our company aren't something that someone has to learn? Okay, so there's a bunch of no-code tools out there. we can integrate, we can either hack the integration or reach out to them and create partnerships and get API access, which is, we've kind of done a little bit of both. So we were given access to like Canva, right? So like a lot of our users have Canva. We plug into Canva. That's a design platform. Those are our users don't have to learn again, right? Airtable, same thing. They don't have to learn to use the database again. So it's like all you do is literally drag and drop the modules in ours. You can upload the images from Canva, and a lot of our users already know how to use Airtable, or we push off the knowledge base for the people who don't know to Airtable or Canva or Zapier. So like there's stuff we don't have to build. We can focus on simplifying the product, and we will get to that true zero learning curve and get someone out fast and easy and fun.
Very cool. No, I love that. I think that it's super exciting. And so now let's take, like, we've talked a little bit about no code. Let's talk about sort of your, journey as an entrepreneur. Like, you've gone through several companies now. What are some of the learnings you'd say that you've gone through, for good or for bad, through that experience?
Yeah. So like the biggest one, and I know this one's going to ruffle some feathers, but like more or less in aggregate, people are really only as loyal as the amount of money you pay them. So like it is, and it's fair, right? So like when you reach a stressful situation and you're a founder, right? This is your baby. So like you cannot expect, it is ridiculous when VCs and investors and startup advisors tell people your early employees are chewing glass and running a marathon of sprints. And you're like, why would they do that? Right? Like even 15% of equity that could mean absolutely nothing in 7 years isn't motivating enough. And that kind of sheen has worn off of like, everyone's going to exit and all these unicorns are going to happen. So there's realities that are like put into place where like, if you are not paying someone to go through the stress or really some higher cause, and it's rarer you get the higher cause with people. Like it is truly rare. Those people are probably working at Google, Facebook, Amazon, or they're working for companies that they want to get, or they're founders themselves. So like, though it is becoming, it's reaching that reality head on and going, the best thing I can do is make sure my company is funded enough to where I can get employees and contractors to a certain level of market value, to where when they reach those speed bumps that will naturally occur, they will go, but at least finding a job is kind of hard. And, like I'm making good money. I like Jeremy, there's worse out there. Right. So like, and it's worked. So like, if you show people that you fucking care for them, like I care about everyone who's like either a customer who has given us money as an investor or someone that works for me, I'll bleed for you. Right. So like, but at the end of the day, if someone's looking at a trade-off and going, oh man, I could be making $120 an hour or 120 grand a year, or I could be working for Jeremy and making $40 an hour. Right. Like, and this is really stressful. So, I mean, it's going to end in good terms. Like I discovered that, right? Like when I had been abandoned by, like I said earlier, 14 different would-be co-founders, right? Things get hard. They're not as passionate as you are. 65, I think this was a YC stat, 65% of startups fail because of co-founder dispute.
Yeah.
So
It's the reason. It basically also tells you that going out and trying to find a co-founder, if you don't kind of naturally have one, whether it's now or in the longer term, it's clear that there's a high likelihood of there being disagreements, of there being misalignments, and that can be a huge risk, right? Exactly as you said. There's basically like, your threat is not external competition. Your threat is yourself and your co-founder's relationship that could go, downhill and would put at risk the entire company. I love what you said about basically not being able to expect as much from your employees as you yourself put in. That's absolutely true. And I think that the one mechanism that I see as being the most effective in terms of kind of like getting people at that excitement level, because if they're leaving their job at Google where they have stock options, they need to have shares in your company. And that's why early on, the way that you distribute equity towards to employees has to be generous, but also has to be basically earned over time. So that's where certain clauses, vesting and sort of, like that's where that comes in. I think that
everyone has a vesting cliff, right? So like it's people that don't know this stuff where you're like, cool, you need to stick around for 12 months. And that's all well and great legally or in an email to someone. But what really happens is you're not even getting close to 12 months. You'll bring someone on board. No joke. Most likely within 3 months, someone will disappoint like that. And you need, as a founder, to know that and understand that and hit it on the head. Like, you need to know that most of the time when you are not that well funded and you are bootstrapped, the way to get past that is having almost no expectations of the people you're bringing on board.
Which is difficult, right? Because you're trying to build a business and you have high expectations naturally.
So like you need to know it's up to you, and you like, bro, the light is hitting me and I'm like, oh my God, how tired do you look, Jeremy? You know what I mean? Like, it's because I go to bed at 2. I wake up at like, I don't know, 6. Let's be real. So 6:30, right? And it's like, because if there are so many problems that happen that and I'm a solo founder, but we have five employees now, 6 employees now, that like all 6 or 7 people, I'll get fucking DMs all day, all with just questions. So it's like, I'm playing like liaison, right? Where like they will ask a customer, they'll get a customer or a customer question, and then they ask me, or they'll get a product question, and then they'll ask me, they'll get an engineering question, ask me a marketing question, and ask me. So it's like, I haven't done anything. So the only thing you can do is know that is coming. Know when you wake up, you're going to get 18 messages on Slack and 23 messages on WhatsApp and 92 emails that you have to look through, and partnership emails and all this other stuff. I go to bed. Like fucking exhausted. So exhausted. But no joke. Every time I wake up excited to attack that day again. Like and that's when you know those realities, and you're like, and you face them and you're like, I would not rather do anything else. Like, that's when you know that you're cut out for this.
Yeah.
You're cut out for making a scalable venture or really truly being an entrepreneur.
Love that.
Anyway.
No, that's super, super interesting. So I have another kind of interesting question here. I think the earlier stages of building a startup, super important to be together physically. You've had the experience of both starting the company when pre-COVID and then during COVID. Have you seen any interesting differences there? And what measures have you taken?
So on the fundraising aspect, I've closed, let's just call it, over $500,000 in my basketball shorts. So like, that was fucking great, right? Like, no one can see what's below here. So that's amazing. So every Google Hangout or every Zoom session is essentially me just like fully relaxed, So that's fun. And I think being fully relaxed echoes throughout the company and echoes throughout like every employee or contractor that we have on board. So weirdly enough, I think when you create that level of comfort for them, they feel more open and more honest, and you get a more transparent relationship. So like, a lot of people in person intimidates, right? Like, it would be harder to do this, and like I would have to watch, and I know I'm kind of like swiveling in my chair a little bit. You know what I mean? So like, but it's way more noticeable in person. Every nuance that you do or thing that you say is amplified in an in-person environment. So I've noticed this weird transition in like I'm going to be really, really honest. I'm going to be really, really transparent. And there's this level of comfortability that I didn't have before with every one of our employees, and stakeholders for that matter. Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny that, you mentioned that, because like when we were in person, we had more office space. And then at the end, we were kind of transitioning into this where like we just kept two of our little offices on the third floor of where the building we're at. And I was like, we don't even need it. Right. Like outside of the fact that someone is a text away or a Google Hangout away, these things do get exhausting. You know what I mean? Like for some reason, looking at a monitor and with a microphone and all this other stuff, it's like, I almost feel like when I see the green light on my computer, I have got to be on. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's a weird feeling. So like I start to get like animated, you know what I mean? Like I start to do things I wouldn't normally do in person. So there's that, which is creating like but it is good. Like it creates a more fun dynamic for the employees. But I would say it gives also employees a chance to hide for a few minutes, right? Like, which is fine because I trust the employees. Like I said, the transparency comes. But like when you're in person, I can yell, "Hey, Kenny, what the fuck?" You know what I mean? Versus if I say, "Kenny, what the fuck?" Like in Slack, it gives him like a 10-minute warning to like figure out what just went on so he could formulate an answer. So like that's a fun dynamic to see. Like I think you get more high quality answers that way remotely. That is not, I got to write that one down. That is not an answer I would have thought I would have had. So like, that's kind of how my transition has been.
That's amazing. No, it is an interesting time. And I just think that like, the fact that you've gone through both states, there's definitely, I see a lot of benefits, in working from home. I think that us from the beginning with Eddie, we really had this mentality, who's my co-founder, by the way. We really had this mentality that we want to build a remote business. You have people like InVision who have really led the way in terms of like the ability to not only build businesses, but build like 1,000 plus employee businesses fully remote. And I think that, it's just about kind of adapting. I know that a lot of people are adapting in different, therapists are having to adapt. You have people like in completely different settings where you feel like that wouldn't work well. And when you go through that experience, like you start realizing, oh, wow, maybe the boundaries that I thought were a big difference aren't that much. And the other question for startups is, does it justify this, 30 grand a month office that I just, that I just basically signed a 12-month lease on? And so I think those are the kind of the questions so do you think you will go back to doing fully in person after this?
No way. Like,
will it be just sometimes?
I don't even think it will be sometimes. Like, I think it will be like the two highest costs of any startup are salaries and office expense. So like, why not, if this is working and it's a great litmus test for working remote, why not cut that expense? And like, realistically, I'd love to give a dividend, right? Like I'd love to share that cost savings with the employees and the stakeholders involved. That has always been a goal of mine, is like, how can we further compensate the people that are sacrificing, right? Which are like, you're either sacrificing with your dollars and you're making an investment of what we're doing, or you're sacrificing your time, in which, like, if we can't pay you a bunch right now, if we sacrifice everything that we're doing inside, like salary wise or office space wise, we can at least give you that VIG on something that we save. So that's something that I've kind of been looking at with like our employees is how do we distribute more the value that we could possibly be saving. But I think with Slack, with Google Meet, like even you see on the Gmail app, like Google Meet is built right in. Everything is, I take meetings now like on my phone in my car. So like, and nothing has, if anything, COVID-19 has been like good for the company. Like we got in the launch accelerator right before, and then everything was remote. We met more investors because everything was remote and no one had to leave. So because our society is so naturally lazy, it's like it benefits the people who like are the ambitious.
Yeah,
does.
I
You know what I
agree.
mean?
I've definitely gotten a lot of my time back. That's
Yeah.
one thing that I feel.
That's a
Like
great way
driving
to
to
put
that
that.
meeting, driving
Yeah.
back from this thing. Like, and I've always had this thing where basically I just chop my day into two parts. One part where I take 0 meetings, and then the other part where I'll take all my meetings. And so it allows me to kind of advance on the core stuff I'm trying to do. Of course, that's difficult when you have some people who can only speak at specific times. So right now we're in conversations with people in the UAE, with people in Saudi. And so that's going to be like a morning meeting for us here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I have to make that work as well. In Europe as well, oftentimes it's going to be like before lunchtime, LA. But yeah, if nothing else, I feel like I've been given back 2 to 3 hours a day.
Sure.
And I don't have kids yet. So so for me as well, that's going to be, that's basically my own point of view. But I know that some of my other colleagues and friends who do have kids, it's a very different story, and it's a story that's much more difficult to get work in, because you have to, one person has to take care of the kid, and then you have a full-time job.
Yep.
And when 2 people have full-time jobs as well, and you can't send your kid to a nursery, well, that makes things complicated.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I don't have some of those problems, and I would think, okay, if you're getting those 2 or 3 hours in, like, it's great that if you want to go for a hike or do something that you wouldn't normally like to do. I'm stuck here struggling, trying to find, like, I naturally fill that void with more work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which fucking exhausts me. So like,
and that's where, like, I think that this whole idea of like balance between like work-life balance, I think it's a little bit BS. Like, you're kind of more
yeah, it is.
on one end or the other. But at the same time, I'm also a really, really big ambassador for entrepreneurs to realize, like, hey, you're running a marathon. You're not just running a sprint, And so if you're not taking care of yourself, like, none of this is going to work. And I think that, I've seen founders who have literally run themselves into the ground. Why? Because they're trying to go too quick, and they're not taking that time. And so, I guess my advice to you would be like, do that sport, man. Get that massage, do that thing, do that meditation. Like, because in the end of the day, like, potentially your company could sell in 2 years, but it's also very likely that your company is going to sell in 10 years.
Yeah.
And at the rhythm at which you're going, specifically when you've kind of like, right now you've hit a really big milestone, I think, which is that you have a good amount of runway, which means that, either you have revenue that's going well, or you have raised capital enough to not be worried for the next, year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, sure.
So it's like, now, the Jeremy that's required to run this company now is changing, right?
Yeah.
Now he needs to be this stable force. He has to be this. And so, and to be able to do that and to keep your nerves, you're not in that tiny first rat race anymore. And so it's interesting, because every phase of a startup requires a different version of the founder. And that's why, like, oftentimes when you have like, you basically, when you reach the point at which you have completely figured out product channel fit, which is like the sales, like, now we're talking about processes, and we're talking about scaling. And so, and you being a manager versus an entrepreneur. And so it's interesting. There's and that's where you have to really keep a kind of like stable mind, and being like, okay, like, where am I at? What are the things that I used to do and I'm just now doing automatically because that's what I'm used to doing? Where do I have to change? Where do I have to grow? What do I have to, like, it's interesting. But I'd say you can take some of the baggage off now, Jeremy.
You would think that, like, you would trust me. I try. I really do try to, like, actively I started doing magic. I started learning. I started learning magic because I'm interested in, like, magic. And I was like, and my wife will just see me and I feel almost stupid. I'm like learning magic, like having a magic set and doing this other stuff, going inevitably. The biggest thing that makes me so excited and what I've learned in just the last few months is when stress is really relieved, and like, people go, what do you do to relax? And it's like, I make a fucking sale. You know what I mean? I have an employee that doesn't need to ask me any questions. It can just own this. right? So like, but that takes time. Both of those, either one takes my time right now, which is like a big sale, let's say, like, which is the greatest feeling on planet Earth. And for like 2 or 3 hours, I feel like on top of the world. And then if an employee can, like an early employee, if they can actually take something and run with it, but they need to learn how to do that first. So like you find that I would love nothing more than to delegate. You know what I mean? I would love to find nothing. I would love to do nothing more than to just sit. I think this anyway, than to just sit there at my desk and go, how cool is this? The business is running by itself. How cool is it?
But that's unrealistic too, right?
It is. Yeah.
I'm saying you're always going to have a lot of stress. You're running a startup. It's the nature of the beast. But if you also need to find that place where you're actually able to get your mind in different states. It's literally about that. Usually when you sit at your desk for 4 hours straight, like, you know, there'll be times where you're like, just like on the same track, right? And so the ability to change the way that your actual mind thinks, and that's just literally like, it's a physical thing. It's using different parts of your brain. And this is, you know, I like nerding out on neuroscience. But it basically allows other thoughts and other perspectives to come up, and sometimes those are fundamental into kind of. But yeah, there's always going to be a grind side to it, and then I think that creativity is something that you have to invest time to get in that mind space.
I feel like this is a terrific therapy session. This is LinkedIn Live therapy. This is WeAreNoCode therapy version.
It's funny because you say that. I mean, I feel like, you know, part of my job is answering technical questions, and most of the time that's Eddie that's taking care of those. He's our chief non-technical officer. Then we have then there's the strategic stuff, so building startups and all that. And then the third one is really just like connecting with the human, because again, the biggest disconnect is between the human, the technology, between the human and the startup experience. You know, and so I always bring it back to the human because that's the driver, right? Absolutely. Everything else is just a thing that's out there.
I agree. I agree completely. You are my guru today, at least.
That's so funny. Jeremy, it was so awesome to have you. But before we leave, where can we find?
Yeah. We're done with this? Oh,
hey, we're done.
Christian, I could have. We talked for like a fucking hour. I feel like what it was, an hour catch up before this. Man,
I know, and we can do another hour after.
I could talk to you for another 8 hours, and I feel like I would be in complete ecstasy. So
let's pick one topic. Let's pick one topic that we're going to go in on before we leave. But before that, I want you to tell people where they can find you after this. LinkedIn is a place for sure.
LinkedIn's a place. I'm personally at thejeremyredman.com. I'm not at thejeremyredman.com. I'm at thejeremyredman. On Instagram and Twitter, and then I've got up to like 240 followers there, so
nice.
Kind of somewhat of an influencer. And then our Twitter handle is your V.One, as you can see in this, YOURVONE, not .com, but that's our website. So yourv1.com. Go talk to me. I will personally help anyone build something. So like, even if it's not using our platform, I'll help you build some workflow in Zapier because I just love talking about it.
That's amazing. So now this is a first time. You're going to pick a topic and we're going to talk about it.
Okay. Do I pick a topic?
Yes, my friend. This is where the roles reverse and the uncomfortable moment of being live.
Okay. All right. This is good. Marriage and creating, being an entrepreneur and being in a committed relationship. Go.
Love it. I'm recently married. Had my 2-year wedding anniversary, probably about a couple of months ago.
Congrats.
Very happily married. Thanks a lot. I am a big believer that I'm a big believer in communication. And so that's also why I've really been in this space of education and empowering people. You know, the interesting thing that I like to talk about, first of all, is the fact that if your wife or husband or partner is not an entrepreneur and you're going down an entrepreneurship path, you have some serious conversations to have.
Yeah.
Because the other thing I'd say is you don't want to try to get that person to fully understand. You need to create a community of other entrepreneurs who deeply understand some of the troubles you're going through, and take that stress away from that relationship, because you'll be going through high levels of stress. And the other thing I'd say is communication.
Mm-hmm.
A partnership, so specifically like a co-founder and a personal relationship, they're both things that require nurturing. They're both things that require being able to communicate things that you deeply feel, and are able to actually get super vulnerable about, even though sometimes, specifically in the workspace, that doesn't feel good. But it's the only place where you can build a relationship of trust with people. And so in that way, I would actually I would talk about, personal relationships and business relationships. I believe that they're coming closer and closer. And we're seeing that LinkedIn is basically becoming this platform where people are being more of themselves. And so I'm super excited in that. But when it comes to like marriage stuff, super interesting. I also set limits.
How about this?
Shoot.
It's hard enough as it is being married or in a committed relationship where someone isn't an entrepreneur. How about this, Christian? How about this? How is it take it a level deeper? Go to committed relationship, living together, entrepreneurship, COVID-19 quarantine. I personally cannot work around my wife. I love my wife to death. Best friend. Rock. But I have got to get out of the goddamn house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, how do you handle that if you can't get out of the house?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I haven't gone through that personally. So anything that I say will be less valuable than other people who have gone through that experience. My wife goes into to work still 4 days a week. So that's something that's fine. The good thing is, there's basically no one. She's in this massive office with no one, like 2 other people in this office, which makes me at least feel okay about the situation.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a small place as well, for me, it's also all about space. So, having your own space where you can work that isn't in front of the other person, or doesn't have to have that person listen to every sales call you're on, or that's very healthy, I think, Yeah. So maybe, having a room to isolate yourself. Of course, that's easier said than done when you look at the real estate prices in California, at least. But yeah, I think that a lot of people are going through what you're talking about. It's like a lot of people are having difficulties really figuring out what this new thing looks like, specifically because it's also something that will change over time. People will start going back to work. So it's not a change you have to do forever. It's just a change you have to go through for about a year. Again, I would bring it down to communication, having those conversations, getting to the depth of what annoys you and what annoys her, and then kind of using that as a way to be like, okay, where am I going to lose battles and where am I going to win battles? And just basically give and take. Someone,
Absolutely.
It comes down to that, I think.
Fine. All right. Well, there you go. There we have it, everybody. Welcome to Not Boring. Oh, wait, we're on your podcast. I forgot. I got tied up asking.
I love it. There you go. Yeah, I don't have an official name. I call it the Quarantine Stream. I'm going to be starting a
really? Do you call this the Quarantine Stream? Oh no. Okay.
I don't. But I'll call it No Code Interviews. We're working really hard in the background to step up our game, bring on more hosts, continue to empower more founders, empower more non-technical people. And we wouldn't be able to do it unless it was for people like you who are going out there and building out these platforms that are allowing people to do this wonderful stuff. So Jeremy, I really want to thank you for your devotion. I want to congratulate you on raising capital.
Thanks.
Although that in itself is not a huge win, but I think that what you've done to get there are the huge wins. And I'm super excited. I'd also like to thank you for the discount that you're giving our students. That's awesome. And I look forward to the next time that we speak and to have you on soon as well.
I have pushed so many things I had to do because this ran over, and I have not been so happy to do so. So I appreciate you and everything you're doing for the no coder community, man. Hands together. Thank you, pray emoji on here. So like I appreciate everything you do. I'm looking forward to our next 4.5 hour meeting.
Yeah, super excited. Jeremy, you have a great day, and thank you for everyone who's been watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you for not getting bored of my face and my guests. I'm guessing that's mainly because I'm bringing on such awesome guests.
Yes,
so have a great day and continue to work hard.
My queen wave. I've been watching The Crown on Netflix.
Interesting. This is mine.
That's the small town pageant wave.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, I guess I have to step up my wave game.
No,
take care.
Take care.